I just felt as though, as a kid growing up here, that lack of the exposure to be around coaches is, I thought, well, I can start something here. So I decided to give coaching a go.
Welcome to another journey. I'm your host, Matt Griffith, and thanks to BMG Partners, of course. And with me today is the Borders Mr. Tennis, coach and founder of the Margaret Court Tennis Academy in Wodonga, Phil Shanahan. Phil, how are you?
I'm well, Matt. How are you? Great to be here.
It's terrific that you've made it into the studio, and I can't wait to find out your journey. Now, we start, as always, at the very beginning and your connection with the border. So, born and bred here, Phil?
Yeah, look, we moved around when I was a younger kid. Started off in Yamurka, and then my parents did some share farming with my cousins in Morale, near Wangaratta, and then we moved up to the hills of Tallangatta, where our family had a farm up there as well. So spent most of my years trapping rabbits around the hills of the Tallangatta area, and growing up on a farm as a young kid was just incredible. And then about the age of 9 moved into Albury with family, and moved into Mate Street, North Albury. So that was a little different than the hills of Tallangatta, I can tell you.
Yeah, I bet you.
Moved into Mate Street, North Albury.
So how old were you when that happened?
Yeah, about 8 or 9. Yeah, when we came in. So
God, I bet you missed the farm and just being able to do whatever you liked out in
I had the best rabbit business in town. I'd take 3 or 4 pairs of rabbits on the bus each morning and sell them into the butcher in Tallangatta, and I had a great business until someone invented myxomatosis, so that really destroyed me. I wasn't happy about that, but anyway, so no, enjoyed the time at Tallangatta. Just the freedom kids have on weekends, just to venture out and into the hills and do whatever.
Yeah.
Then came into Albury, went to St. Anne's for 1 year in the primary school there, and then back then all the boys in grade 4 had to come into St. Pat's. So came into the Christian Brothers, had a great time there for a couple of years, and then went out to Aquinas, which is now Xavier, in high school, and played tennis out at Sacred Heart Tennis Club, played football for St. Pat's, and played cricket for an old club, Postal United Cricket Club in Albury, that was out at trained at Sarvis Park. So, once I got into town, I was really lucky enough to be involved in a number of sports. It was great.
Yeah. So sports have obviously played a pretty major part in your life. Now, no doubt your famous aunt, Margaret Court, has had a huge influence on your decision to pursue tennis. So how old were you when you really started to notice that he was one of the greatest tennis players of all time, who just happened to be close family? Yeah,
my mum June, her sister, of course. I really didn't know much about Margaret growing up as a kid. I think it was in the early 70s that we went down to the Australian Open to watch her play. That was at Kooyong back then. And I don't remember much about the match, but I was actually lucky enough to be sitting next to Raylene Boyle. So I do remember that I was sitting next to the person who had the greatest pair of set of legs I've ever seen on a human being. So I seriously don't know whether Margaret won or lost that match, but I was a young guy sitting next to Raylene Boyle. How lucky can you be? Obviously, I remember the I think it was 70, 71 finals, listening to Margaret's match. And then met her a couple of times. But at that stage, I don't think Margaret even knew the sheer significance of what she'd achieved in tennis. For those people that don't know, Federer's won 21 Grand Slams, and Margaret won 64. So just the sheer magnitude of what she achieved is mind-blowing.
It's unbelievable. So where did your mum and Margaret grow up?
Yeah, they grew up in Ebden Street in South Albury, so right across the road from the grass court. So obviously Margaret would go across there in the afternoon, or during holidays, or in the afternoon after school, and hit on the courts, and that's where she fell in love with the sport.
Wow. Was your mum and Margaret close?
Yeah, no, they're really close. And they've got two brothers as well. They've passed, deceased, and they were both professional bike riders. So,
Wow. So
yeah.
the sporting gene is in the family.
Yeah, well, my Uncle Kevin, obviously his grandson is Isaac Smith, has just retired from Geelong. So, so my Uncle Vincent in Queensland, he's deceased, as I said, but he was a great bike rider as well. So, yeah, it was a very big sporting family.
Yeah. And I mean, luckily we have some of the great matches just on YouTube. I was watching the other day, actually, Margaret and Billie Jean King. I think it was the 1970 Wimbledon
final. It's you, Margaret won the Grand Slam. She won all four in the 1 year.
It was in colour as well, and the footage is amazing on YouTube. And she's so cool, calm and collected. I mean, certainly there were no outbursts from I think
that was 11-9, 14-12. It was before the tiebreaker was introduced into the sport. Yeah. And no seats at the change of ends. The players had to stand and towel down, and around they went again. But Margaret was actually, she had, in that final, she had injections just before it into her ankle. She said that if it had went a third set, she wouldn't have lasted the distance. But hearing from Billie Jean's side, because I was lucky enough to sit with Billie Jean a couple of years ago at a function at Melbourne Park, she said she had an injury and she couldn't have gone to the third as well. Who knows what would have happened.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously there's sporting genes in the family. You were kind of discovering that Aunt Margaret was world famous as one of, if not arguably the greatest tennis player of all time, certainly in the conversation. So when you moved to Albury, and you had your choice of sports, what was going through your mind? Because obviously you love cricket as well.
Yeah, I love AFL as well.
Footy?
Yeah, footy. So at the age of 13, my cousin Wayne Smith and I and my mum went over to Perth to stay with Margaret. It was the first time we'd gone over there, and she had a court at the house, and we'd go out and hit every day. And I came back and said, I just fell in love with the sport, and came back and quit football and quit cricket, and that was a pretty big thing to do as a 14-year-old, because I love the two sports so much. So then I obviously really got into it, was playing 7 days a week, travelled all the tournaments in the area, lucky enough to have some close friends like the Tynan brothers and the Wirtzes that helped me get to tournaments, and we just travelled and played and fell in love with it. Obviously, had some great wins over my time in the juniors, and then when I got to 17, 18, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship into Teachers College in Sydney, so I had to decide whether I was going to continue on with tennis or take on the teaching scholarship. So I decided to do that, see how that went, and while I was in Sydney, I started to do a little bit of coaching up there, and fell in love with coaching in the sport. Yeah.
So really, you've found your two great loves, which is sport and teaching.
Yep.
Because have been the passions in your life, and you combine them with the Margaret Court Tennis Academy, and of course teaching at school, which you've done at St Pat's for how many years?
43 years coming up.
Wow.
Went there as a student, and it feels like about 10, really. I mean, when you go, it's not work when you go to a place every day that you love being at, and how blessed am I to be able to be with kids every day of the week, and then coach in the afternoon as well.
Yeah.
I've got
no regrets about chasing the dream and glory of being a pro tennis player for years and years?
Look, I think it's something you look back at. I had a lot of good matches against Carl Lindbergh. I had a couple of wins over Carl. Carl got to the quarterfinals of the US Open. He was from Wagga. But, I look back with what I've achieved in coaching, obviously coaching Sam Groth from a young age, and travelling through with Sam the ups and downs of the sport. And as a junior, there's no 100%. It's not going to. There's a possibility that you're not going to make it to the top. That's for sure. So just to be with them when the highs and the lows, and the next thing you're sitting at the French Open, and you're sitting at Wimbledon and at the Australian Open with them, and just thinking, you pinch yourself as just how did this happen?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah. So in the world of tennis, is it a top 200 that's kind of the classified as like the How does it
financially making it.
Yeah. There's a couple of hundred, isn't there? Where
look, there's about 3,500 players on the circuit at present, and you really, you need to be in the top 100 for 5 years to make a good living out of it.
Right, so you need to be in the top 100 players in the world, and you tend to, because we're so used to watching the big tournaments as well, where if you're sitting, say, 50th in the world, you're basically an also ran in a Grand Slam, and you just kind of go, oh, well, he'll easily get beaten by Djokovic or whatever. But anyone in the top 100 or 200 or 300 players in the world is an absolute superstar, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, when you consider the draft of the AFL, and players in their first year contracts can be on $200,000-$300,000. And you could be 200 in the world and you're flat out making a dime, it's just a different world, isn't it? It's pretty cruel. There's so much money at the top end of the sport, and then the bottom end where players are, 4 or 5 guys are sharing a motel room to survive, and not trying to work out where they're going to get the money for the next flight to the next tournament. It's pretty tough.
Is it the skill that's the differentiator, or is it the mental acumen, the mental strength, and that's part of it? Like Djokovic compared to the 100th player in the world.
Yeah, I think good question. The great players can consistently play at that high level, and I remember in the early years Sam had a couple of big wins against some of the top players, but then in the next tournament lost to a low-ranked player. And, you come off that high of beating, a top 50 player in the world, and then the next day you lose to someone at 300. So there's not much difference in regards to the ability of the players in maybe the top 500 in the world, but the top players can consistently reach that high level and stay at that level.
Yeah. Well, we've got to get to Sam Groth, so that means we have to focus a little bit on the academy. So you decided to become a teacher.
Yep.
And studied for that. How did the Margaret Court Tennis Academy come about?
Yeah, I suppose coaching, coming back to Albury and getting a job here, lucky enough to get a job back in Albury. I suppose as a young kid I really struggled to get coaches myself. We had a couple in town. Well, we had a lot of great players in town. They weren't really doing a lot of coaching. So I suppose my mum, June, took me to Melbourne once every 3 months for lessons with Keith Rogers, who was Margaret's former coach. So I just felt as though, as a kid growing up here, that lack of the exposure to be around coaches, I thought, well, I can start something here. So I decided to give coaching a go. I was going out to country towns like Yakandanda and Osborne Flats and Gundowring, Upper Gundowring, travelling all over the place, and then tennis really started to take hold here in Albury. I suppose from a coaching perspective, you just want to do your best in regards to the pupils. So my mate Ken Wirtz and I travelled to Sydney and did our professional coaching licence, which was great. That was in the early 80s. And then Ken and I coached at the grass courts for many years. I suppose it was about 2001 when most of the kids didn't know about Margaret Court, which is quite amazing. Most kids now don't know about Pat Rafter. It doesn't take long, does it?
Yes, it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, so I decided that I'd like to make sure that her name is not forgotten. So I started the Margaret Court Tennis Academy, and then we started the Margaret Court Cup with the help of the Joss family, and the commercial club have been great over the years to have that tournament live on in her name. And every child that comes here receives a free Margaret Court shirt. And I'm so proud when I see these shirts all over Australia and all around the world too. These shirts are being worn. So I think, and on the back of the shirt, it's got her career highlights. So you see people reading them at the Australian Open when they're sitting down, and some of the kids have got shirts on. And I'm really proud of what we've achieved in regards to continuing Marg's name.
How many people work at the academy? How does it all work day to day?
Yeah, we've got a number of full-time coaches now. My son-in-law, Cameron Ma, has been running the Wodonga Centre. And we've got a number of coaches here in Albury, but in the last couple of years we've got Gary and Natalie from South Africa who've joined us full-time, and Abby Spears from the United States has just joined us as well. So we've got two players, Abby and Natalie. Natalie was 22 in the world in doubles, and Abby was number 10 in the world. She won the Australian Open and two-time runner-up in the US Open.
Wow.
So I've got my son as well, Mark, and then local tennis champion Jade Kolf, Cyrus Andrews. We've had Paul Jarvie in the past, a former Olympic swimmer, and I'm going to forget someone, but we've had so many good coaches and continue to bring great names to the area.
Was there ever a thought of giving up the teaching at school and just working full-time at the academy?
Not really. I really do love going to school, and I'm big. I love the mathematics side and the history side, so I love those lessons during the day, and I love being at school around the kids, and a lot of the kids from the school have come on, obviously, to the academy as well. So, no, I love being at school. We've got two great bosses, Liz Johnson and Michelle Giddos at present, and it's such a great place to be every day. I mean, if you're happy in your workplace, you want to be there, and it's just such a great school.
What do you love about teaching? And not just teaching at school, but also teaching in a coaching role?
Good question again. I suppose I help shape the future generations of Australia. I do love that. I love to find out where the kids have ended up, what they're doing. I love when kids will come up to you and they'll say, "Hi, Mr. S," and I'll look at them and say, "Oh, yeah,
I can imagine.
Was I nice to you or was I tough on you?" I just love that. As I said, I feel as though I've only been teaching 15 years, but it's been a whole lifetime, and it's if I had the opportunity, if I died and come back, have the opportunity to choose another job, I'd do teaching again.
Yeah, and that's it. That's really the mark of a life well lived and a life that you can be happy looking back on when you don't have any regrets like that, and you wouldn't change a thing. Tell me a little bit about a young Sam Groth who lobbed up to the academy. Now, was he at school as well, or did he just come into the academy?
His family moved, or they were originally in Narrandera, then to Corowa, and then came to Albury. Sam was moving into year 7 when we joined ranks. His brother Ollie was at St. Pat's, and his sister as well. So, yeah, Sam was pretty good, handy footballer as well, and he just loved the game. He really struggled in regards to his ability in regards to all the other players in the academy. He worked so hard. I took him away to Sydney a couple of times for tournaments. The state coach said to me, "I don't think this kid's got it." So I told Sam that, and I think that's really did spur him on. So it's always, and the state coach to this day still says, "I regret saying that." It's one of my lines I regret. And I said, well, actually, I'd have to say we're really thankful you did say it, because it spurred. Some kids might have just walked away from the sport. He might have went back and played footy, but in Sam's case, he'd come into the club and no one would hit with him because he was probably the weakest player there, and he struggled to get hitting partners. So he'd just get a basket of balls and he went out and served every day. So you could see this kid that was on the court next to you just serving and serving, and then I'd work with him on court, and he had this passion to be a great player. And at 14, he said to me, "I want to play Davis Cup for Australia one day." So I said, well, my good friend John Fitzgerald's the Davis Cup captain, so let's write a letter to him. And Sam did. I gave it to Fitzy, and when Sam won the rubber at the Davis Cup rubber in Darwin, Fitzy actually came out in the court and interviewed him and said, "I've still got that letter that you wrote to me when you were 14 years of age, saying you wanted to play Davis Cup for Australia. Well, congratulations, young man, you've achieved that goal."
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, where did he get up to in the world rankings?
53 in singles, which is, when Sam made 200, I phoned his dad straight away and I said to Phil, his dad, I said, "Mate, what an incredible effort. To get to 200 in the world in this sport is just ruthless, and then what an incredible achievement." So got to 200, and then he got down to 160, and we thought, oh, he might break 150 here. And then he got to the 120s, and I thought, surely not. Can he do it? And then he blew back out to the 130s, and next thing he was 99.
Yeah. God, it's incredible. I mean, considering how many people there are in the world and how many people play tennis, that is extraordinary.
But incredible because that 99 allowed him to play in 4 Grand Slams. You know, once you get into that top 100, you're basically locked into the making money for that. And Sam had never made any money before. Yeah. So I was so proud of him that if finally you don't have to share a room with 10 blokes in a motel room, you might be able to have your own room.
Yeah. And you never know, it could be the Premier of Victoria.
Well, he could be.
Politics now, of course, in the Liberal Party. And is he enjoying that? You obviously keep...
Yeah, I had lunch with him recently. He was to come to Albury for Easter and just come up and show his family the area, but he had to cancel at the last minute because he's just so busy. Look, he'll do a great job. He's a people's person. What you see is what you get with Sam, and lovely young man. Yeah.
Did you know he had a focus on politics? I mean, did you chat about politics?
We did discuss it, yeah. He said, I'd like to do something different. He was working with Channel 9, doing postcards and doing those sorts of things. But he is a community type of guy, and he wanted to be out there and
that's brilliant.
doing and helping as many people as he can because he's had a lot of help along the way.
Yeah. How much further can de Minaur get? Can he get to number 1?
It's interesting. How long's Djokovic going to be there? I think Sinner and Alcaraz have bigger games, hit the ball a lot harder. I think Alex's greatest weapon is his speed. How long does a body continue to have that speed as your weapon? You know what I mean? Right. I think once injuries start happening, he hasn't got a big game, but
he never gives up. He's a bit like Leighton Hewitt.
Yeah, exactly the same as Leighton. So if his body can hold out, I think he's got to be a chance to go up into the top 3 or 4. I think, brilliant. But as I said. His number 1 weapon is his speed and his tenacity.
Yeah. All right, let's turn our attention back to you and your journey. How difficult has it been balancing family with teaching and coaching?
Yeah, pretty amazing. My wife Jenny has obviously been my rock. I don't think she ever knew when she said yes she'd marry me what she was signing up to actually.
And when and where was that, Phil?
That was back in 1982 here in Albury.
In Albury, yeah.
Yep, and it was my first year of teaching here.
Yeah.
At St. Pat's.
Yeah, and was it a quick love affair before the?
Yeah, I'd known Jen for 12 months, and then once I got the opportunity to come back and teach in Albury, we're married in the May of the first school holidays.
Does she love tennis?
She didn't have a tennis background, but I think I hope she's listening to this, but I think she loves tennis.
Well, the kids do.
The kids do. Got Claire, Mark, and Nicole, so they've all been a part of the tennis family, and in a big way, whether coaching, playing college tennis in America. Very proud. And we've got 5 grandchildren, and the first 3 are now into tennis, and the other 2 are just about to start. So, I sort of make it compulsory for our kids to play tennis. But because the only reason is whether they take it to an international stage or not, they've got it for the rest of their lives. They can, I've got mates that are in their late 80s still playing, and I think it's just a sport for life. So it's a bit of a compulsory thing that has to happen in our family.
Why should kids get involved in sport generally? What does it do?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've seen so many superstars come from our school at St. Pat's, and it's so healthy. It teaches them discipline, good work ethic. So hopefully they bring what they learn, the skills they learn in sport, they bring that to the classroom as well. They make a lot of sacrifices. I've got a birthday party, or I've got this swim meet, or this tennis tournament. There's a lot of life lessons that sport teaches, and I just think every child should play sport. Yeah,
I loved sport when I was a kid, but I'd always break at the critical moments. Was
that a mindset?
100%. I'd always be like, let's say the ball was kicked to me in footy. I'd always go, I'm going to stuff it. I'm going to stuff it up. I'm going to stuff it up. And then you know what happened, Phil? I'd stuff it up.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But that's where good coaching
a mental
probably comes
coach.
into it, to be honest. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You were talking a little bit earlier about you like to kind of shape the future with Aussie kids, but it's not just Aussie kids that you help and shape in terms of their future, because you've got a connection with Thailand.
Yeah, it was about 18 years ago. A missionary lady, Helen Gardner, was here in Albury-Wodonga. She was working in Thailand at the Mercy International Children's Orphanages. We call them villages now. And she was working with HIV kids. And I knew she was in town, so I went along to listen to her. And I was so touched by her story, I went up to her afterwards and introduced myself and said, look, would you mind if I come over to Thailand and do some work with you? So I went over. Then the following year, I came back thinking that was it. And then the following year, some other people, friends of ours, said, we'd love to do something like that. So I went back and then thought it'd be great for my family to experience this. And so family and friends went back. And so 17 years later, I've just returned last week, actually. We took a team of 17 from Albury-Wodonga and going back again in 8 weeks' time. So I'm a big part of the Mercy family. I love seeing children who have been born on the streets, children who have been delivered to the orphanages in shoeboxes, children that are born in prisons that are given the opportunity to go to Mercy. And now we have our children now graduating with honours, those children graduating with honours from universities all around Thailand. And that's pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. My partner, Riley, spent 6 months in Vietnam.
Yep.
And I remember seeing pictures, and I've seen a lot of footage and things from countries like Thailand and Vietnam, and people just look so happy. And I was asking her, I said, well, what is it about? And she just kind of said this love of family and joy of living, it's almost infectious.
Yep.
And somewhere along the line, it feels like we've kind of lost that. We've got all the things in the world, like, I mean, our standard of living is unbelievable, but we never seem happy. Like, is that actually something that you've noticed, just the joy of living that
definitely
happens over
life is very simple. I know the children at the children's homes all have a Tupperware box each, and in that Tupperware box is their life possessions. It might be a picture of their mum or their dad or a family member. And sometimes some of these children have actually offered me these pictures, and I go, no, you've got to keep these. These are the only copies you have. And these kids couldn't be happier. They've got we'll build a house, and they'll have a house mum that looks after them basically from when they arrive till they're 18 years of age, to keep the culture going. The orphanages were started by Rob and Jean Dunk, local people, and now run by Sharon, their daughter, over there. So, just to see Australians over there making a difference in our world. But the kids, when you see the kids each day, they come home from school and they've got a big family, there's 60 or 70 kids you can play with, and they're just so happy. But as you said, they don't have a lot, but what they have is lots of love, and they have an incredible future. Kids are learning English, which is now giving those children at the orphanages an opportunity to go out into the workforce, whether it's working with airlines or motels, or they've got that second language. So it's a great start for them. Yeah.
Do you think kids here are happier, were they happier 20, 30 years ago? Or, I mean, has something kind of been lost a little bit from childhood today?
Yeah, what I've seen in teaching is I think when I grew up as a kid, we didn't have a watch. We'd go out and ride the bike on a Sunday and leave early in the morning, get back at about as the sun was going down. Yeah. And the parents would say, what have you been up to? Oh, we've been up on the hills riding bikes. And now I think kids are pretty much controlled by the clock. They've got to be at gymnastics at 4 o'clock. They've got to be at music lesson at 5:30, and they're wrapped up in the busyness of our world, I think, controlled by being here at different times, and they're picked up in cars and dropped off. And whereas we never had that when we were kids.
Yeah.
If you got a flat tyre, you walked the bike all the way home.
Yeah.
There was no ringing mum or dad to come and get you.
Yeah. And there was no helicopter parenting because they couldn't. Once you were out of the house, you were out of the house.
You're out of the house, yeah. And what we got up to, we won't move into that area, but we had a lot of fun as kids. But you think sometimes, how did we survive that?
Yeah, that's so true, Phil. That's so true. What does the future look like for you and the family?
The future? That's a really interesting question. At the Australian Open this year, we had a delegation from Indonesia come down and they're very interested in starting the Margaret Court Tennis Academy in Indonesia. So in April I flew over and met the delegation and had a great time in Indonesia, and we have some huge prospects that aren't too far away in regards to taking our academy internationally.
Wow. But you would stay here?
Yeah, good question. 43 years of teaching. I probably would look to go over and oversee the operation, and how that looks yet, I'm not sure. But the discussions are very healthy, and looking forward to the next chapter of my life, I think.
Yeah, God, that's exciting. But obviously the enduring love has been, it's been those two things. It's been tennis and teaching. So, it's too late to leave those behind, Phil.
Haven't I been blessed? I mean, the journey's been amazing, and thank you for the opportunity to share my experiences. I've had great support behind me with family and friends, and I look back on it, and I'm 64 years of age now, and can't wait to see what the next 64 years bring.
Yeah. Phil, it's been terrific talking to you and sharing your journey. It really has. Let's wrap it up, shall we? If you were advising someone who was a tourist or just rolling into town, where would you say to go? What are your kind of top spots in Albury-Wodonga and the region?
Definitely the walk along the Murray. Can't beat it, can you? Yeah. Obviously, Albury's greatest destination for many years has been Beechworth.
Yes.
Beechworth's done very well. I do love it. Love Mount Beauty, love Bright. I love the region, I think.
Is it in your soul? I mean, is it?
It is. Having the opportunity to travel all over the world with tennis, I've been, you just think to yourself, there's no better place than Albury-Wodonga in the region, is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Give us a recommendation for something to read or watch. My recommendation is to track down the 1970, because it's in colour as well, which was very rare for that time. Yeah. 1970 Wimbledon final with Billie Jean King and the great Margaret Court. Go and watch that. It's incredible to watch. But what's your recommendation for us, Phil?
Well, I'm heading to Perth this weekend. I've got a niece that's getting married, and I'll be staying with Margaret. And I do love interviewing Margaret, so I'll do a few interviews about her life on the tour and what was it like being number one. So I loved that side of things.
Will that be available to watch?
Oh, well, I could send it to you if you'd like. But I do.
Like it up on YouTube.
I do love showing those sort of just those short clips to my players. You know, when you're in a tense battle, you close your eyes. What are some of the things you can use to get you through the moments ahead?
Yeah, because beyond anything else, obviously there's a huge difference in technology, and that's really the main thing, isn't it? Like the rackets, even the footwear, everything, preparation,
everything,
into sports science. But the mental side of it is exactly the same, right? The winning mentality of a Margaret Court is exactly the same as a Serena Williams and all of the modern players.
But I think back then, of course, they didn't have a team travelling with them. I think they kept it very simple, very, very simple.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to spending it this weekend with Margaret and just going down memory lane again. Yeah,
terrific. Well, Phil, it has been wonderful sharing your memories of your journey. And terrific to talk to you again, and thanks so much, mate. And whenever there's the next big tournament on our radio show, we'll be sure to give you a call as we always do. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Matt.